these four components are the areas which are very important in going through your research methodology workshop. So by looking at it, I will be able to see that both these sessions are very important. Now, since you all have already started working with your supervisors, I believe that it is very important for you to basically go through these steps. And also, this is a workshop and a seminar. It's not a lecture. So you will be able to chip in at any time and ask me questions. You can stop me at any time. I'm I'm very okay with that situation. And at the same time, you are most welcome to ask questions in language. So sometimes we see that students find it very shy to sometimes look at this language aspect. So we don't see that there is a language barrier. You can talk to me in either Sinhalese or Tamil or English. That's no problem. So I will try to respond to your questions on that as well. So with that thought, I welcome you all to the research workshop 1, and let's start the journey and let's see what are the contents for today. Now, these are areas which you will be able to look at by going through your research guideline. Research guideline is very fundamental, and at the same time you will be able to see that when you are looking at the research guideline, you will be given an overview, and also each and every area what you have to address has been very clearly given there. So always refer to the research guideline. And even I see that some of the students have coming and discussing with me research, but they have not read the guideline. So it is very important that you read the guideline and see that you follow the guidelines to the dot. So that is very important. So with that thought, let's start the looking at the contents. First of all, how to enjoy the research process. That is very important. Then how to find a good research topic and research problem. So I'll be giving you advice on that as well, which is very, very important. And then I'll be going into the next point. Why and how to be passionate about the research. That is very important. At the same time, you need to understand that without a research topic, proper research topic, and if you don't have an understanding about the research topic, you should not embark and you will have many problems in time to come. So don't try to imagine that there is a research problem. Try to look at the research problem and justify it. So we'll be looking at all those aspects. How to maintain relationship with the supervisor. I will just touch upon that as well. And then I'll be going with the comprehensive structure of the research proposal. So these are aspects which are very important. And sometimes my voice and the slides might have certain problems because I'm just experiencing a power cut. I'm just running on my backup power and my power UPS as well. So I think it will hold for about 2 hours. But in an event, if there is a problem, don't worry about it. I will switch to my other computer, and you might have to give some about 10 minutes for that as well. So we hope and pray that this will work, because even when I was doing the seminar for Colombo, I had the same problem, but we managed. So if there is any problem, so don't get upset about it. I will come back. Give me about 5-10 minutes so that I will be back on the lecture. So with that thought, let me take you through the journey. It is very important that when you are going through the research process, you have to see that you have your own schedule. In the schedule, see that you are one step ahead of your supervisor's deadlines and as well as the slim deadline. Normally, when you get stressed out, you will not see that your research work will be properly done. And also what we will do is we will tend to do some work in order to see that you address it some or other. So you will find shortcuts. You will go into copy and pasting. You will try to take somebody else's research and try to submit. So all those problems are there because you don't have a schedule. So write a schedule, how you're going to get through the entire process, and see that you stick to this schedule, and also mark the very specific milestones which you have to achieve. So that is very important. So in research, you are not meeting deadlines, but you are meeting milestones as well. So, and also you will be able to look at your topic area. That is very important. So try to get a good overview of your research subject area. That is very, very important. If you don't have a very good overview and a knowledge, you will tend to do certain mistakes as you go on. So that is a problem. And at the same time, you will be able to see how far you are expanding your knowledge by reading references, bibliographies, and go through all the literature which is available in order to see that you get a sound knowledge of the area of research what you're trying to look at. So that is very important. At the same time, you should be able to have a research question in your mind. So when you are dealing with your research, see that what is the research question you have it in your mind. Try to see that you gather more information as you go. You will be able to discuss with your colleagues, discuss with your lecturers. So that is very, very important. At the same time, don't try to take everything together. Try to deal with one piece at a time. So it means you have to see that your entire process of your research, you will be able to see that you will be able to take it into different blocks and see that you address that. At the same time, you will be able to see that in between these blocks, you will be able to take some time as leisure. Otherwise, you will get bored with the entire research. So see that you are well organized, and it is not a thing which you have to wake up at the last moment and disturb your supervisor and try to get it sorted out. So you have to start your work early on. Then only you will be able to get through with these aspects as well. So this is very important for you to look at. At the same time, you will be able to see that you have to use a system. That is very important. So when I say there is a system, see that how you are going to generate your research ideas and how you are going to collect your data, how you are going to collect your notes, and how you are going to see that every quote, fact, thought is tied in some way to its sources, that you can easily insert the references while you are writing. So this is a very important aspect where you will be able to see that you scribble your notes and take points. So every section has to be planned out. Just don't try to write it, because why? Otherwise, there will be no logical flow in what you write. What you write is a communication material. What you write should be understood by you first. If you can't understand what you're writing, then your supervisors will not be able to understand. The Viva panel will not be able to understand. See that you are very methodical. So anything what you see, write down. See that it is very logical. So that is very important. Excuse me, give me a second, please. Sorry about that interruption. Let's move on with the slides. Okay. We were in the point where to use a system. So using a system is very, very important, where you might have to deal with all your ideas, where you try to stream it down to a logical flow. So that is very important. So with that, let's go into know your resources. Now, here what you have to do is you have to get ready in order to justify your research problem. That is one. And also your choice of variables, what you're going to select. So those are things which coming very handy for you to design your research. That is very important. So you should be able to see from where you are going to collect these resources. Sometimes it may be online, sometimes it may be from offline material. So you have to have a general idea from where you are going to access your references. That is very important. Now, at the same time, the next point is ask for help. So when you are going to deal with asking for help, so we'll be looking at the section where how to handle the supervisor and how to build a relationship with the supervisor in order to do this particular research. Not only the supervisor, so you will be able to always contact your other lecturers. Just ask them what they feel about it. Sometimes there will be certain colleagues, senior colleagues, which you know who has done this research. So get their views also. So rather than putting only your ideas into it and your supervisor's idea, try to see that you expand the areas where you will be able to get assistance. Get their views. So it doesn't mean that you have to outsource your research or whatever. So that is very detrimental. Then you will have problems when you are doing your vivas. So always see that you get outside information as well in order to enrich your study. So that is very important. Carry an idea book. Now sometimes this might sound very hideous that we are telling you to carry an idea book whilst you will be able to use your smartphones. Either you will be able to have a small notebook where you write it down on your research. Sometimes you will be able to use your smartphone as well. So that is not going to have a problem whatsoever. Either way, you will be able to see that you can deal with that issue. So don't worry about it, but see that sometimes whatever the discoveries in the world, when you talk about even the ideas, has been generated not at laboratories mainly, not at boardrooms, not at conference tables. It has been in a very casual places, like sometimes it may be at a coffee shop, sometimes when you are having dinner with your friends, sometimes when you are going outing. You might get a bright idea, but it is very useful for you to see that you make some emphasis on that and make a note of it. So that is very important. Number 10 is revisit your schedule, because as we know, there can be circumstances which are beyond our control. Sometimes you might have a small hiccup and you might get delayed in your work. So always see that you revisit your schedule and ensure that you are reaching your milestones with ease. Don't delay work and get stressed out and try to attempt a research report or a research process. Now, this is very, very fundamental. You have to see that you maintain a constant flow of work rather than you are suddenly waking up and trying to do it. So always make it a point that you get engaged with your research all the time and you have to finish your day to day work which you have scheduled. Because I have seen many students who have started very well, but halfway through they give up, and the final phases they try to come in, but they don't complete as a very quality standard material according to the SLIM guidelines. So this is very important how you enjoy your research process, and always see that you have to schedule your work. That is very important. Always don't have a habit to come up with excuses. At this context, we all know that everybody is going through problems. There is no point telling problems to your supervisor how you can't complete your work. So that will be very unproductive in your time as well as the supervisor's time. Remember this is not the SLIM research. SLIM is not going to get affected whether you do it or not. Research supervisor is not going to get affected whether you do this or not. It is you are going to get affected. So always think this is going to enrich me so that I should do this. Don't get out of this habit of giving excuses. Because everybody is not worried about excuses, but they are only worried about the solutions. That is very important. So this is the overview I wanted to share with you guys regarding how to enjoy the research process. Otherwise, it will be the other way around. You will start complaining from day one until you finish it off. Then at the same time, it will affect your work as well. So with that thought, let's go into a very important aspect, how to find a good topic and a research problem. I think most of the students are sometimes struggling because they have not done their background work and they don't have a proper idea how to find a good topic and a research problem. That is very important. Always, when you are looking at this particular area, see that you don't start with a research topic and try to build a research problem or find some problem and try to link it with the topic what you have already decided upon. First of all, it is very important that you look at the research problem. If you go other way around, then you will have problems. So always make it a point that you are starting or your research work, the genesis will start from the understanding a marketing problem. So when you are trying to look at a problem, see that you don't select a HR problem or a finance problem or administration problem or a feasibility study and go and ask your supervisor whether this is okay. When we say it's marketing problem, because you are doing a marketing diploma. So that is very important. So thereby you should be able to see that you select a marketing problem. When you are selecting a marketing problem, it is very important that you look at certain criteria of your selection. That is very important. Number one is whether you will get access and permission to the organization under investigation. That is very important. Why you have to get permission? Access is you should be freely be able to go and get engaged and also gather information and data. At the same time, when you are selecting a research problem, these aspects should be covered. You should be able to see whether you have access, as I mentioned, or permission to go and investigate a marketing problem and try to build a research on that. That is number one. When you are selecting the marketing problem, see whether there is enough data. Whether this data can be used in my research. At the same time, you should be able to get some understanding with from this research, marketing research, what am I going to achieve? What am I trying to investigate? What will be my conclusions? What am I trying to, what will be my, what are the questions I'm going to ask? What are the answers I'm going to get from this particular research? What are the type of objectives I'm going to achieve? So all those things are very important. Sometimes there can be data, they might not give access, then you can't do the research. Sometimes there may be data, but it will be not relevant to establish your research problem. Sometimes you will know that there will be a research problem with your experience. Sometimes you will be working for the same organization, but you will not be able to sometimes justify that problem. Now, justification of the problem is very, very important, and it has been emphasized at the proposal level as well as the final research report level. So, anything what you can find will be sometimes has to be fact based. It is very important that you see how you are going to justify. So, I will touch upon the justification of your research problem at the proposal level as well. That is when we discuss the proposal. At the same time, you should be able to understand the research problem and the topic what you have selected from the research problem, whether it is meeting the guidelines in terms of sample size. Sometimes the sample should be well above 100. Are you meeting that criteria? And also the data collection. So, what are the type of data collection methods we can use in order to come up with the answers for this research problem through your research? These are very fundamental aspects which we have to look at. And also, you should be able to look at whether you will be in a position to engage with their respondents to your questionnaire. Whether the company will allow you to distribute a questionnaire. Because most of you all will be doing a qualitative study. Some of you all will be doing the mixed method. When you are doing the mixed method, you need to see that you are trying to interview them or try to observe them. Whether the organization will support you all to do that. Because we have gone through the last 1.5, 2 years with certain batches of research students who did get access sometimes to these companies because of this pandemic situation. So we had to find certain other innovative ways of how we are going to get the data from the respondents. We used to use Google Forms in order to send that online and to get it distributed sometimes and also to collect it. Check and see the ability whether the respondents are capable of answering a questionnaire sent online through the Google Forms, and also whether we will be able to collect the data also. So in an event, we have to deal with that situation, whether we will be able to handle that as well. So which is very important. So when you are selecting a marketing problem, see that all these criteria are met. So that is very important. Any questions up to this point which you want to ask? Either you can switch on your mic and ask me questions, or else you will be able to use the chat box as well. That's no problem. Either way, I'm okay with it. And also at the same time, you can ask me questions from any language. I'm okay with that too. So this is not a lecture, so you will be able to ask questions so that Asking questions will support you as well as your colleagues in the forum as well. Okay, let's try to move on with our work. Going further in this area, how to find a good topic and research problem, you will be able to look at, in order to do this particular research, will I be able to generate enough data? That is very important. So you have to see that you collect enough data which will be current and accurate. At the same time, it's not to be historical data. Mainly, in order to test your hypothesis, you need to collect your primary data. That is very important. So ensure that you have enough data, and that will be we will be able to use this methodology which will be acceptable in order to achieve the final conclusion. So that is very important. And at the same time, you should be able to see whether similar type of topics has been undertaken by the previous authors. So whether there will be literature sources available. That is very important. So when you are looking at the literature sources also, see that those sources are current and those are not outdated, and it comes out with specific ideas which you will be able to utilize, and you will be able to agree upon those ideas as well. And there should be certain type of link to the area of study from those literature sources as well. So see whether online offline literature is available. You will be able to refer into online journals. Sometimes you will get access to different databases like Emerald. Sometimes you will be able to go into other databases as well. So that is very important. Check and see how best you will be able to deal with that. And there should be enough literature sources when you are looking at your topic, because every topic will have certain keywords. Now, if I take a very famous topic, what you all are doing, like say, like identifying factors affecting sales decline. Now, when we look at that topic, the sales decline will be a research problem. At the same time, you will be able to see that that is the keyword which you have to deal with. You need to see whether you will be able to find previous research which has been done based on this area of sales decline. That is very important. Then moving towards the next point. Ability to justify the selected research problem with evidence. Sorry. Now, this is an area which is very important. You will be able to look at that there can be research problem available, but as long as you can't justify it, you will not be able to use it for your research work as well. So it is very important either you use statistics, literature, or preliminary investigation, which I will touch upon when we are going through the types of your research proposal report. Any research problem, what we select, need to be justified. That is very important. Otherwise, anybody can tell that this is my research problem and you can't accept from that. So that is somebody's opinion. But in research, what we do is we deal with facts, which are very, very important. So supposing when you are dealing with statistics, we will be able to take the same topic which I took it as example, identifying factors affecting sales decline or purchase intention. You will be able to see whether there is a problem of sales decline. In order to use statistics, you will be able to see the sales figures for the last 5 years and check and see whether year on year whether there is a decline of sales. That is very important. And you might ask why I am telling for you to select last 5 years. Because we know that 2019, 2020 and 2020, 2021, we had very special environment. One was the Easter attack, the other one was the pandemic. Because of that, you can see that there is abnormal results in marketing. So those 2 years when you take will sometimes contribute to certain issues. Those are temporary. Where sometimes the entire industry might also suffer. When you are looking at the sales decline, take for the last 5 years and see whether there's a trend. At the same time, it is appropriate for us to check not only the organizational sales, but also see whether the competitors also has the same problem. What is the industry situation? Whether the industry also has declined. If the industry also has declined and your company has declined, there is no research problem there. When the industry is growing, if your company is declining, there is a research problem. At the same time, you will be able to bring in certain statistics on market share so that you will be able to bring in this justification in order to select and justify your problem with evidence. That is very important. Number two is literature. You will be able to bring in literature into the table by past research, similar type of research has been done, and see whether you will be able to understand that there is a literature and a research gap which you are trying to bridge through your marketing research. That is number two. Number three will be a preliminary investigation. Preliminary investigation can be in terms of giving a questionnaire out, having a discussion. Sometimes you will be able to conduct certain interviews. But see that in the preliminary investigation, the data is recorded, but the number of respondents what you take can be around 10 to 15, not more than that. Because why? You are conducting this preliminary investigation to justify that there is a research problem like this. From the problem, you are trying to generate a topic. That is very important. So preliminary investigation is being done if you see that the statistics are not there, literature is not there, but you have a hunch that there will be a problem of this nature. In order to justify that, you will be able to have this particular preliminary investigation. So check and see whether you have statistics, whether you have literature, then you don't want to go into preliminary investigation. Either one of these has to be employed as evidence to the research problem. So this is very important. Any questions up to this point? Because justification of the research, sometimes the students find it difficult to understand. Any questions from you all? Anything which you want to clarify? Anything which you think that you need to, you want me to re-explain things?
All are okay, sir.
All are okay. So that is also good if everything is okay. Hmm? So I think you all are in the process of going through the research. And if there is any doubt, please let me know because these are conducted for your the support. Okay, right. Then let's move on to the next area. So we are trying to put all this how to find a good topic into 4 steps. Now, when we are writing a research problem, it has to have clarity. When I say clarity, it means there should be coherence or what you call clear. It should be very clear to you. If the research problem is not clear to you, you can't develop a topic out of that. So when you are developing this idea to write the research problem, try to see what are the type of concepts and the terms which will make up your topic statement or the research statement or the problem statement, what you see. So always start with the research problem. Write it very clearly and understand. If your research problem is or the statement is not clear, then your research topic will also not be clear. When we are developing the research topic, see that it is free of grammatical mistakes and spelling mistakes. Not even at your level, even at the MBA level, I have seen when they showcase their topic as the first slide for the Viva, there are certain grammatical and spelling mistakes. See that you paraphrase it in such a way that it is very clear. By looking at your research topic, the Viva panel, and you in particular, your supervisor, should get an idea what you are trying to achieve. What is your effort behind it? So that is very important. At the same time, review relevant research. Now, if you take a topic like, say, impact of customer satisfaction on service quality, there are 2 variables there. One is customer satisfaction, the other one is service quality. See what are the concepts around it. So what are the concepts which you are trying to build upon it? That is very important. So these 2 keywords, the customer satisfaction and the service quality, you need to have proper literature to review it. That is very important. So those research literature review will also support you to develop a good research problem and also to have a good topic as well. At the same time, when we are coming up with a research problem, you should also see how far you can develop certain ideas, arguments, where you will be able to see how you can establish your ideas, modify it and strengthen it through bringing in all this literature also in support of that as well. Further, when you are looking at your research problem, you might be able to refine it after writing 2 or 3 times. And also you will be able to look at the background information, literature, and try to see that you conduct a type of a scan where you will be able to paraphrase your topic very clearly. From the topic, you will be able to understand what you are trying to do with this particular research area. So these are fundamental ideas which I need to emphasize with you as well. So these are very important aspects which we have to pay much attention, because every Viva panel will want to know what is your research problem, how did you justify that research problem, and then how did you develop a topic out of it, which is clear and people or the panel can understand what is the area you are trying to find out from this research. What are the aspects which you are going to find out? So those are areas which are quite important. So if you want to impress a wider panel, see that your research problem is very clear, that you will be able to justify your research either from your statistics, either from bringing in certain literature sources, or else by conducting a preliminary investigation and then try to develop your overall topic. So, in other words, your topic has to have alignment with your research problem. Research problem has to be justified through the justification of the research problem. These are three important components which are very important for you to develop the rest of the proposal. Because in a proposal, we ask very important three questions. What are you doing? Why you are doing? And how you are doing it. So, mainly what you are doing will cover your research topic, your problem statement, your justification, your research questions, and your objectives. Why you are doing will be through your significance of your research and your literature review. How you are doing will be covered through your methodological implications, starting from conceptual framework, developing your hypothesis, designing your research, where you have from research philosophies, choices, methods, then time horizons, then you are coming into sampling, data collection, and analysis. So all those aspects are your methodology. So it will cover the how part. So still we are in the what area, what we are doing. So these three questions has to be very clearly answered through a research proposal report. So this is very fundamental and you should be able to practice that. This is very important. Then we come into a small section where we have to deal with why and how to be passionate about research. Before we come into this area, whether you have any questions, anything to discuss, anything to clarify, we will be able to do that before we move on. Okay. Uh, Give me a minute. I think we have regained the power. Might have to give me about 2 minutes so that I will be able to switch back. Okay. Uh, Now we have a specific problem or the questions from Samira. Is it okay to get forms filled physically? Uh, that's perfectly all right. You will be able to distribute physically. But when you are conducting a physical distribution, see that you are not trying to influence them unwarrantedly. So that is an area which you need to look at. So that is, you have to see that you are very fair in giving out that particular uh, forms, and you will be able to collect it without any problem. So those are areas which we have to look at. And thank you very much, Samira, for asking that question. I think everybody would have benefited out of that as well. So thank you so much, Samira, as well. That is a very prudent question. Anyone else has any questions before we get on with the rest of the slides? Anything which you want to ask from me? Okay, let's go into the next section. Why and how to be passionate about the research. Stimulation of respondents. Sometimes when you are trying to collect data from a responder, the respondent may be sometimes will always thank you for conducting the research, because by them getting involved, also sometimes they will become very passionate about the research, and also you will be able to see that all these respondents are respond to your question. And so stimulation will come from the respond that sometimes the stimulation of the researcher, the research might stimulate so that you will be able to learn new things, and also sometimes you will be able to practice the concept and the theories what we learn in marketing through our research as well. And a sense of participation, uh, or a sense, so that is very important. Now here you will be able to ensure that you are doing something important, so you will get a sense of pride. So that is very important. As I said, the growth of knowledge, so you will be able to expand your knowledge horizons on a particular subject. Now say if it is uh, something like sales decline, or sometimes you might take a topic of service quality, sometimes on customer satisfaction, sometimes you will be able to look at brand equity, how brand endorsement. So those are areas which are very important for marketing. So you will be able to expand your knowledge through that as well. Then you have a quest for progress. So by doing a research, you will be able to see how far you will be able to improve yourself. By conducting a research, you are trying to bring in all your ideas and also your strength into one research paper, so that's why we have it at the end of your diploma program. That is very important. Curiosity to understand the cause and effect relationship of various occurrences. Now here we are trying to look at, you will be able to passionate to understand whether product will cause the sales decline, whether product will cause customer perception, or the price, how it is impacting on sales. So what is the type of influence you have from each variable to another? Sometimes cause and effect relationship. This will cause one to improve or to come down. So that is very important. Sometimes the promotions will improve your sales. So when to have better promotions, your sales decline will come down. It means your sales will grow. So you will be able to understand the relationship between these variables. And finally, if you come up with a very good research paper, what will happen is you will be able to ensure that you are contributing something to the marketing subject area. So discipline of marketing, how you contribute to that. In terms of bringing in new ideas, sometimes you will find out new theories. You will be able to see whether you will be able to test new theories in new environment. Those are aspects which are very important. Duminder, can you keep your mic muted, please?
Sorry, sir. Will do.
Thank you very much. Then you will be able to look at whether you will be able to fulfill a research gap as well in marketing, so that you will be able to contribute into the subject. So all these aspects will create certain passion for you to drive towards conducting research. So these can be different reasons why this research should be pursued. I know that research is very technical and sometimes quite daunting for you all to understand. But always try to do things which others are not doing. Try to look at certain things which are quite difficult, so that you will be able to go through a difficult journey and then come up to a very important destination. I know research is not easy, but the amount of application into the research will see how far you have grasped your ideas throughout this entire diploma program. You are trying to demonstrate that with one paper. So it is very important that you put your effort into it and see that you realize that. That is important. Then I come into another section, how to maintaining relationship with the supervisor. Now, I think most of you all, everyone has started working with the supervisor. You should really understand the role of the student and the role of the supervisor. It is very important that you understand this. This is your research, not the supervisor's research. So it is very important that you have to work by yourself, by going to the lectures and getting the knowledge about research and trying to implement it. The research supervisor will see whether your work is right and give reviews, and also will propose certain suggestions and recommendations what you need to correct. Sometimes they will come and give you certain ideas for amendments, but it is your sole discretion to accept it or reject it. But the supervisors are well qualified in research and they have done many research prior to coming into supervision. And they have supervised many students and they have a lot of experience. So you need to see that. You engage with the supervisor and get meetings rather than supervisor is chasing you down. It will not happen. You all are matured enough to see that you work on your own and you can get the assistance of the supervisor. Now, here in your guidelines, it says at least 4 meetings with the supervisor when you are preparing for the research proposal and the viva. Minimum of 6 meetings. After getting the approval and going towards the final submission. So altogether, you might have to have 10 meetings in your log sheet. So you need to maintain a log sheet. That is very important. So if I were to show you a log sheet, so let me draw your attention in here. Go to Annex 1. Okay. Now this is the log sheet. Specimen log sheet. You need to enter your name, registration number, name of the supervisor. So you will be able to see week 1, 2, 3, 4 like that. So you need to fill in the dates and put get the signature of the supervisor. So you need to record the dates so that you will be able to get supervisor's signature. Okay, sometimes these are the number of weeks what you have. So finally, when it is completed, you have to get supervisor's signature and the date. These are important. So maintain the log sheet, which is very important when you come into your research. Okay, let's come into the slides back again. This is very important. Remember, supervisors could only guide you to conduct the study. In other words, they are the guidance, they are giving the guidance to you. It is your responsibility to initiate meetings and obtain the required guidance. So, see that you always engage with the supervisor, but at the same time, you see and adopt to the supervisor's style. Because supervisors are not only doing supervision, but also they are engaged with their own careers and professions. So you need to find time when the supervisor is free. Supervisor will not go and find time when you are free. So that doesn't happen. So always try to have a pre-scheduled meeting. You can just request from them a time and a date for your next meeting. That is important. They will always give you a time and see that you keep to that particular time, because respect for each other's time is very important. Sometimes if you are given a meeting, if you can't make it, inform the supervisor well in advance. That is very important. Okay. So since you all are all now working with the supervisors, so I think that there is no problems, so that you will be able to engage with them and get their ideas regarding your work. And also, if the supervisor requests something to be sent on a particular date, either through email or WhatsApp or on the Teams, whatever the mode convenient for the supervisor, try to engage with that. That is very important. The supervisor's ideas are quite important in enriching your research work as well. When you are developing these materials, what I told you, like the research proposal report, then the Viva, then the final report and the Viva, followed by the final report as well. Now, we'll come here to the crux of the entire seminar today, writing a research proposal. So I always believe that you need to write the proposal and then develop your slides based on that. Now, in a Viva, there are two aspects. One is the preparation, the other one is the delivery. So, though both aspects are very important. So, the journey to the preparation will start from writing a research proposal. You might ask from me that we are only supposed to come up with the research proposal slides for the Viva first. Why we are trying to write a research proposal? Because the moment you finish your Viva, there will be a very short period for you to submit your research proposal report. So it is very vital because the research proposal report will attract marks. That is important. So thereby you see that you finish your draft, go to the Viva. If the research Viva panel gives you certain insights or changes, you need to ensure that you adopt that and submit the final proposal to SLIP. So that is very important. Sorry. With that thought, let us try to go through the contents of the research proposal report. At the end of this particular detailed steps, I will show you one or two samples, but the samples are not perfect. So thereby you can just get an idea how this report has been formulated. So first of all, the research report should contain 2000 to 3000 words. It means a comprehensive report has to be written. So don't wait until you go and do your Viva and then start on the research proposal report. So if you are confident enough about your research area, you will have only minimal changes to be done and submitted. So try to work simultaneously with your research proposal along with your slides. Now today seminar we are trying to discuss the research proposal content. So that is very important. Now if you take your guidelines, you have the research proposal content, and also you will be able to see research proposal presentation content. Now these are two things what you have to do. Now this is the format how you do your slides and do your presentation. That we are trying to look at tomorrow. The first thing what we do is that first you should be able to have an understanding how you are preparing your report. Otherwise you will not be able to address these areas under research proposal presentation content. Now, today we are trying to look at research proposal report contents. So when you write this, definitely you will be able to address these sections because these are some of the sections which are available on the detailed proposal report. Okay, so you will be able to see that these are the sections which I am trying to address along with you now. So if you quickly run through the contents, you see the background of the study. Then you have the background of the company, industry contents, research problem, justification of the research problem with evidence, statistics, literature, preliminary study, research questions, and research objectives of the study, scope and significance of the study. Then you move on to brief literature review. So this need to be in line with the research problem, where you will be able to justify your selection of independent variables that we come into detail. Then you come into research methodology, where you start from conceptual framework, operationalization of variables, then the interview guide. You have population here, sample selection method, sample size. So this is the content of your guidelines. Data collection methods, data analysis techniques. So in your guidelines, you have limitations of the study, but I will prefer you to have limitations as well as delimitations of the study. Then you have the time plan and the references. Now, this is the general content what we have to discuss in your research proposal. So let's try to see what and what has to be discussed from the background of the study. Now, when you are looking at the background of the study, the purpose behind the background of the study, you need to emphasize the fact that you have a thorough knowledge about the topic here. That is very important. When you are addressing the background of the study, check and see what are the keywords in your topic formulation. What are the themes available? You need to see that you build that along with literature. Now say we take a topic, impact of service quality on sales decline. So if you take that particular topic, let me put that in your chat box. So impact of, say, service quality on sales decline of Triset company. Now, if you look at your chat box, what is your main problem here? What is your dependent variable? So you will be able to see that it is sales decline. At the same time, you will be able to see that your moderator variable is service quality. So these are the two themes which we are trying to look at. So what is the type of influence of service quality on sales decline? Now here we have two themes. There can be another topic like this. Identifying the factors affecting customer perception, or you can say any product, some product. Here, what are you trying to look at? Sometimes you will be able to see how best you will be able to understand the customer perception. Sometimes you will be able to see topics you need with purchase decision. There can be many themes. So you will be able to understand from your topic area what are the themes. Now, if you are having one theme like sales decline, or if you have two like sales decline and service quality, you need to emphasize by bringing in literature sources to justify that. So you discuss about service quality and sales decline there. And also you will be able to see at the introduction to the topic how far this topic is important, relevance and factors, etc. So here we need to address this area by showcasing the key themes and also giving some general ideas about the background of the study. So this is very important. So it means you might have to bring at least one or two literature sources to justify your themes as well. And see that if those are direct quotes, you have to have your citation and the relevant reference as well in Harvard style. So those are aspects which are quite important. Then you come into the research problem. As I emphasize very clearly with you all, so it has to be a very short, stylish summary. Don't go into paragraphs and paragraphs. So when it is a statement, it should be a statement. So this is the most important section you need to address, because why? This is where you have developed your topic as well. So you have written the problem statement first, and through that you have developed a topic. That is very fundamental. See that this problem statement is clear and concise as well. When I say concise, it should be on a summary format. Don't have paragraphs and paragraphs running. When you are looking at this particular problem statement, you should emphasize the fact that you can employ valid and appropriate methods in research methodology so that you will be able to come up with the conclusions. So write a small statement. It can go up to about 4 to 5 lines maximum. But shorter it is, but don't put the topic as it is. But write the problem statement which the reader can understand when they look at it quickly. Your entire quality of your writing and your research will depend on the clarity or the clearness of your research problem. That is very important. Now, this is the very most important section on the first few topics. How you have been able to justify a selected problem with evidence. You have to see that you establish your problem with either statistics by putting in literature, or if these two aspects are not available, then you might have to go for a preliminary investigation to justify your research problem selection. So justification of the research problem can go with certain graphs, certain materials, like you can put your market share, competitor analysis. Sometimes you will be able to, if it is sales decline, you can have a run chart along with the industry performance and your company performance for the last 5 years, just to see the differentiation. Sometimes you can see the industry is going, the company is declining. So then that's a problem which you need to be addressed. So see that that is done with clarity. These are the initial steps which you need to format properly and write it very clearly so that the research is successful. Anybody reading this should get an idea what you are trying to do from this research. Then we come into another important area. Before we come to that, is there any questions from you regarding the background of the study, research problem statement, and also the justification? Then we'll discuss that and we'll go into the other areas as well. Any questions, please?
So excuse me, in the
Yes.
in the proposal, are there any are there two sections like the background of the problem, and after that the problem is
Yes.
are these two factors, two
There are two
sections?
areas, two sections which we need to address very clearly. Background of
Okay,
the
sir.
study and the research problem.
Background of the problem. After that the problem.
No, background of the study, and
Okay,
then
okay.
you have the research problem. In the
Okay,
background,
sir.
what you can do is you will be able to look at the key themes, keywords, and then try to address that some. Okay, so check and see. Now, say if you are taking a topic like say a small topic like factors affecting service quality. Now, if it is so, the theme is service quality. Now, there can be another topic linked similar to that, like impact of customer satisfaction on service quality. So then you have the service quality plus the customer satisfaction. There are two key themes which you need to address under the background. And also you can have give a small hint about the background of the company, industry, and also the context. Context is the background. Rationale is what? The justification. Then you put your research problem. It's a problem statement. Then the justification comes in, because my slides are also under according to these guidelines. I am not deviating in the guidelines, but sometimes I would have put a little more extra into it to enrich and explain your research proposal better to the Viva panel and the markers as well. Is it clear now to you?
Okay, sir. Okay.
Thank you very much for asking that question. Anyone else has any clarification? Anything? You can talk to me in Sinhalese, no problem. In Tamil, no problem. I will be able to handle it. Because my main purpose of coming here is the knowledge transfer in whatever the language. So don't get shy. If you are shy to open up and ask by switching on the mic, you can put your ideas in the chat box. No problem. This time is for you, so you can ask many questions as possible as well. Now then we come into the research questions and research objectives. Now the research questions are the areas of interest you are trying to look at to obtain certain answers by conducting this research. Now, when you are formulating your research problem, you will be able to see that by conducting this particular research, you need to see that you bring in certain answers to that problem. The purpose of the research is to answer the research problem. So you have a series of questions which you can ask in order to generate answers to the research problem. So that is very important. You need to emphasize what are the research questions. So by asking research questions, you are generating answers by conducting the research. That is one side. Then when you come into research objectives are specific actions and activities to answer the research questions. So you need to formulate your research questions and your research objectives as well. That is very important. When you are writing your research objectives and research questions, ensure that always you need to ask the research questions and research objectives which you can achieve at the end of the study. That is important. Your research questions and the research objective should have that alignment. You are trying to get answers to the research questions by formulating these research objectives. So it means the objectives are specific actions which will answer the research questions. So that is very important. So when we discuss the sample, you will be able to see that it has been done. But when you are writing the research questions and the objectives, try to understand what is the methodology you are going to use. What is the methodological choice which you are trying to look at? Are you going with monomethod quantitative or a mixed method or a monomethod qualitative method? Are you going to look at the mixed method, as I said? So when you are using a mixed method, you can see that you can ask research questions and objectives in terms of quantitative and qualitative both. But most of the students now, they do only a quantitative study. Thereby, you have to see that you have research questions and objectives are based on that. Because there should be a fit in this model along with the methodology. This is very important. So at the end of your study, if you can't achieve your research objectives and answer the research questions, it means your study has failed. And also keep in mind that you have to use the acceptable methodology in order to achieve these two aspects, the research objectives and the research questions as well. So these are very fundamental aspect when you are developing your research. So we discussed justification, research questions, and objectives. So when you are writing your research objectives, see that you break the research objectives into two aspects: primary objective and the secondary objectives. Or else you can name it as general objectives and specific objectives. So there will be one primary objective or a general objective, and there can be few specific or secondary objectives. Always see through the study what you can achieve. You will be able to look into formulating your research questions and going into research objectives as well. Any questions on this? Any clarification further? Okay, let's move on. As I said, there are two aspects into developing research objectives. So general or the primary objectives. So either you can use it as general objective. So there should be one objective. So here what you see is the general overall goal of conducting the research. So it will be similar to your topic. Then the specific and the secondary objectives, you can see that there will be more specific goals, like say going in line with your developed conceptual model. Or else you might be having a very specific overall objective. Like if you are doing the mixed method, you can go up to providing certain recommendations and insights in terms of bringing down the boosting up the sales or bringing down the customer complaints, or sometimes there will be improving the customer satisfaction. All those things are very important. But always see that you frame out your general and the specific objectives which you can achieve as well. So this is very important. Then we come into scope and significance of the study. Now, here when you are talking about the scope, you have to just mention the general limitations and the boundaries of the study in which you are going to do. Now, sometimes there can be a study which you can be specifically focusing on a specific geographical area, like say Gampahar district or Galle district or Kandy, Central province, or sometimes you will be able to have certain demarcations. Limitations we will be able to address last on a specific, very dedicated separate topic as well. Here in the significance, when you are writing the significance of the study, it is very important that you cover the academic significance, the theoretical and the business or the practical significance. So these are very important aspects. That would be look at rationale of doing the study and its relationship for the theory, knowledge and practice, how you are going to look at why it is significant to do. In terms of, you will be able to see the practical importance, like how this study is significance to the researcher. That is you. Why you are conducting, why it is important for you to do the study. In terms of the reader, anybody reading your document. Then the company and the industry. How significant is this research study for that particular company or the industry? And by conducting this particular research, whether it contributes to organizational development, institutional development, and national development. And also you can look at the financial development as well, which is important. So you try to emphasize the practical importance of this particular study. That is important. So we spoke about objectives, we spoke about the scope and the significance of the study. So significance also, when you're writing, you can look at all these points like significance towards the reader, researcher, company, industry, and national development. You will be able to have a paragraph or two, but don't have a very lengthy discussion, but you can have a controlled discussion there as well. Any questions on these two areas before I go into the brief literature review? Now, the sole purpose of conducting a brief literature review at the proposal level is to present literature sources in terms of how you are trying to develop your conceptual framework or the theoretical framework. That is very important. As you all know, you will be able to see that when you develop your conceptual framework, you will be identifying different independent variables. From the research problem and the topic, you can identify your dependent variable, what you call the problematic variable. So you need to identify about, say, 4 to 5 independent variables. In order to support your choice of finding these variables, independent variables, you need to employ a brief literature review. That is important. At least when you are identifying each variable, you need to have at least about around 3 literature sources to support the selection or the choice of independent variables. That is very important. That is one aspect. And also you, through the literature, you will be able to emphasize the fact that how far your research is original from those which has been conducted earlier by the previous authors. So that is very important. So there also you will see how your research is academically significant. That is important. And also you will be able to, while discussing your brief literature review, you can compare and contrast your literature, what you call a critical evaluation. You can say author number 1 says like that, so author number 2 says that, like this. But there are similarities on these two authors, and also there are certain fundamental differences. So comparing and contrasting is very necessary. So see that you conduct a brief literature review, which is fundamental as well. Now, when you are going towards looking at the literature review, most of the students try to bring in literature sources to justify the choice of selection of variables through irrelevant literature sources. Then how are we going to see whether this brief literature review is relevant to the study or not? So you will be able to employ a literature evaluation checklist of this nature and see whether whatever the literature you are trying to bring in, whether it is justifiable. We have to see that we conduct a literature review which is relevant. If your literature sources are not relevant, you can't justify the selection of variable sources. So go through this particular evaluation checklist and see to what extent is the article text relevant to my research. If there's no relevancy, you can't take it. Check and see from your keywords. Now, if you are conducting a research on sales decline, you don't need to look at sometimes the purchase intention or service quality if it is not relevant. If it is relevant, yes, you will be able to do that. So how are you going to look at your relevancy? What was the aim of the article or the text? Whether the aim was achieved. Any material which is generated in a very significant background, like say through a university, to an institute, you will be able to bring it to the literature review. But in terms of, sometimes you can see the online sources, you are having articles, but you don't have a relevant author. There is no responsibility taken by relevant institute or university. There is no date. It means somebody's opinion. As I said at the initial stages, we are not dealing with opinions here, we are dealing with facts. Are the findings supported by rigorous and convincing research? Whether the proper methodologies have been used? All those things are very important. Does the article text present new and interesting ideas? Which is very important. Is the article text clear and persuasive? Whether the article come up with very good insights. And also you have a call to see whether you will agree with these views expressed or whether you don't agree with these views. So all these aspects are quite important when we go through the brief literature. So see that you use relevant articles. Don't use anything which is very old. Check and see whether there is an author, whether there's a date, and whether the article gives some convincing ideas with proper methodology or research techniques being used. And if it is a double review article, particularly which is the responsibility is taken from the university, it means it has been reviewed at least twice. Once when it is presented for evaluation, the next point is when it is presented in front of a symposium where you will be able to see that it has been reconfirmed again for publish. So published articles are quite straightforward and reliable because nobody will allow, no institute will allow anyone to publish any article as long as it doesn't have any relevant aspects. So that is very important. Any questions on literature review? Anything which you need to clarify before I go through the methodology now? Give me a minute, please. Any questions, please? Anyone need to clarify anything on literature review? Okay, let's move on to the methodology. This is the next very important aspect which you need to look at. So here, what we try to emphasize is we are trying to use a set of methods and principles by conducting a research whereby we are trying to achieve the objectives of the research and also answer the research questions. So methodology is very important because we try to mention that in the research proposal as well as at the final project level as well. So it will have a series of steps which we need to address. Now even your guideline will ensure that we need to address these areas. So when you are addressing these areas, I have given you a little more descriptive details through my slides. So first, let's see the areas which you need to address. Conceptual framework. The hypothesis is not given in the guideline, but I will just mention what hypothesis as well because hypothesis is important for testing. Then you have the operationalization of variables. Sampling, I have addressed the unit of analysis, population, sample size, sampling technique. Then the data collection and primary, secondary data collection methods as well. And the analysis, quantitative, qualitative. And in between, I have addressed the research design as well. That is very important about the research philosophy, the choice, the time horizon, all that. Now, first of all is the conceptual framework. From the research problem and the topic, you will be able to identify your dependent variables. So after perusing literature around the dependent variable research problem, if you have a mediator or moderator variable, that's fine. You will be able to straight away, based on that, you will be able to select your independent variables. Otherwise, if you are trying to utilize a model, that's fine. But otherwise, if you don't have then dependent variable, you use the dependent variable, check the literature around it and try to establish your independent variables through literature basis. That is very important. So you will be able to look at what are the main types of concepts which you are trying to address. So that has to be discussed in the framework. That is very important. You will be able to, while doing a brief literature review, you are trying to justify your selection of your variables as well. Now this is a sample conceptual framework. Identifying the factors that affect in-home consumption of Nescafe. Now as you see the topic, you know that in-home consumption of Nescafe will be your dependent variable. Then by perusing this literature around this, you will be able to capture independent variables as taste, quality, perceived risk, need for socialization. So this has to be established through literature. In your conceptual framework, you should identify what are the independent variables and what is the dependent variables. And it has to be connected with single arrows running into this. unless otherwise it's a model which we are trying to develop. So this is a very simple conceptual framework which will be sufficient for you to handle your research proposal report. Then you come into hypothesis. Now, hypothesis is a calculated guess or assumption which you will be able to see that those are productive statements constructed by assuming a cause and effect. Now, you will be able to, in a quantitative research, you need to construct null hypothesis and also alternative hypothesis. So, you should be able to look at what are your hypotheses and mention in your proposal as well. But in your guidelines, it has not been given specifically. But it all depends on your supervisor. So if your supervisor needs to be showcased, see that you will be able to show the hypothesis, because you should have something to be tested at the end of your statistical analysis. So that is very fundamental. So when you are looking at the null hypothesis, always there can be two predictions. Either it's on a positive aspect or the negative aspect. Now we will be able to have a predictive statement regarding rain. We can say, right, by 9 o'clock tonight there can be rain. That is positive prediction. The negative prediction is there will be no rain by 9 o'clock. So yes, it is important. But in the worldview of research, you always show the null hypothesis or the negative aspect, and then it will be supported by the alternative hypothesis as well. So that is the goal in research methodology. Then we'll see, based on this conceptual framework, how you write your hypothesis statements. So we'll take the first two variables, that is taste with in-home consumption of Nescafe, then quality, perceived risk, and need for socialization. So you will be able to see the null hypothesis in brown color and the alternative hypothesis in red color. Since this is the first variable, we see it as H0 is null, H01 is the first. Then the alternative is HA, so we can see that it is HA1. So as I said, the null denotes that taste has no impact on in-home consumption of Nescafe. Then the alternative hypothesis is taste has an impact on in-home consumption of Nescafe. So here we say there is no impact. Here we say that there is an impact. So you will be able to see the same way we have developed hypothesis for other variables such as quality, perceived risk, need for socialization. So just check with your supervisors whether these need to be addressed or not. Okay, but it is not in the guideline, but I make it a point that the students who I supervise, they have to have the hypothesis statements so that you will be able to test that by collecting data, the statistical data. That is important. Then we come into the next point, the operationalization of variables. I show you the format and the interview guide. Now, when you are developing the operationalization of variables, you should understand why we are trying to have operationalization of variables chart. Because in order to collect your statistics, we need to see that we manipulate your dependent variable and the independent variables. To what extent we are going to manipulate that and seek to measure these variables in statistical aspects. So it needs to be, this is the normal format what we are trying to look at. So the first column will have the concept, then you have the variable, then you have the indicator. So for the indicator, you have to add the literature or the in-text sources or the citation to verify the indicator selection. Then you have to have the measurement, question number, which is very important. So this is the format of your operationalization table. So when you are preparing your interview guide is, if you are going into the mixed method, you need to show that there is an interview guide. If you are going with only mono method quantitative, operationalization of variables will be sufficient. If you are going with the mixed method where you are going to conduct quantitative as well as qualitative, both application, then you have to see that you show the operationalization of variables plus the interview guide. So in interview guide, what we have is open-ended questions to cover the measurement of variables, collection of qualitative data. So that is very important. So when you take one variable, you will be able to develop at least 2 to 3 questions to cover that particular variable in your interview. But also look into the number of questions. Interviews when you are conducting, see that you have maximum 20 minutes or maximum half an hour. Don't go beyond that in an interview. So when you try to interview a person more than that period, then it becomes a problem in the today's context because everybody is busy. Their concentration can go out. So see that you ask short questions, precise to the point, and conduct the interview and complete it within 20 minutes to 30 minutes time. So that is very important. So I will show you the formats of this tomorrow, so that you will be able to understand when you are developing your slides as well. So it is very important that you will be able to look at. Now, if you want to take a look at the proposal, conceptual framework, and the hypothesis and the, let me see whether I will be able to take a sample out. Oh, yeah, this is the conceptual framework. You will be able to see the independent variable and the dependent variable, and then hypothesis statements. Then you can see operationalization of variables. So you will be able to see the concept, the variable, indicator, the source has been given, measurement, and the question number. This is a very clear operationalization of variables chart. Now if you want to see it a little expanded, so you will be able to check this out now. So you will be able to see the concept is given here. It's similar to the topic. Then you have the dependent variable. These are independent variables. Price, the purchase intention, then the price, customer knowledge, quality, and the brand name. Now for each, at least you need about 3 to 4 questions. Now the student has given 4 questions here, 4 here, then 3, but that won't come right. But if you are giving 4 questions, you have to throughout give every independent variable and the dependent variable 3 questions. So then you will be able to see the sources under that. So these are very important: customer preference, trust, willingness to buy, perception on the brand. So these are the sources, literature sources. Then
Amount the
hello, is there a question? Hello.
Hello, sir. Excuse me.
Yes.
Can you give a brief introduction on methodologies? I couldn't participate that part due to a signal problem.
You might have to go with the recording, sir.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So
Okay.
recording is available. You might have to go with that. Right. We were just discussing about the operationalization of variables. That is very important. So you will be able to see that for each and every variable we have this being looked at. The concept, variable, indicator, source, measurement, and question number. So this is very important. Okay. So any questions on these areas?
Excuse me.
Yes.
Regarding the operationalization of variables, one column says source. What does that mean? Is it does that mean from another literature?
Yeah. Yeah, because now when you are looking at now say the purchase intention, now these are the dimensions or the indicators. So you should find these indicators through particular sources. So you have to see a background. No, this is a literature source.
Okay.
So in this literature source, you have this in-text reference which has been given here.
But is it possible to come up with our own indicators?
You can come up with your own indicators, but you have to see that it is supported by the literature. That is very important.
Okay.
So because here what you do is you try to operationalize the concept what you have built up. So now you can see the same thing on your, if you go back, this is your conceptual framework. This has independent variables and this has the dependent variables. So what you have to do is how you are going to measure this concept. In order to measure this concept, you have to collect data. Okay. So that is very important. To collect the data, you need to develop a questionnaire.
Yes.
So in order to develop a questionnaire under price, what are the sections which we are trying to look at? What are the dimensions? So now if you take price, you will be able to see here under price, the student has taken value for money. Under that has been referenced in Rubio et al. 2015. Then customer satisfaction on price is the second indicator. Then the discounts, then the competitor price. So for those 4 indicators, you have the literature source. Then what you do is you try to see whether you can bring in certain questions from the pre-tested questionnaire based on this literature source. So that is normally what we advocate the students to do, because if you make your own questions, sometimes you might come up with the issues of your reliability and the validity test and the factor analysis. Okay, so that is a problem.
Thank you.
Is it clear?
Yes. Now I understand. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for asking that question. I think it would have supported the other students also to understand this areas. So that is very important. Okay, from there, let's try to move on to the next level. Now, though the research design is not elaborated in your guideline, what I thought was to just to run through that research design also with you all, so that this is mainly taken from the Saunders, Mark Saunders book, Research Methods for Business Students. There are two authors, Adrian Thornhill and another author. It is normally taught in a curriculum as well. When you are going for lectures, you will be able to understand the research design. So you will be able to see what is the design in terms of research philosophy, research approach, research strategy, research choice, and time horizons. So these are aspects which are very important. So in order to do that, you have to go into that concept, what you call the research onion model, and try to see whether you will be able to reflect these terms by reading through that. I think you have been given, you will be able to get the ebooks even from the internet. You will be able to download Research Methods for Business Students. So that is a very important book, and also it has been used for many curriculums as well as a core text. So that is very important. So here what you look at is the research philosophy. So the research philosophy can be pragmatism, realism, positivism, and there are some other philosophies as well. So you have to read and understand in what philosophy you are going to conduct this particular research. So if it is only a monomethod quantitative what you are trying to advocate in your research philosophy will be positivism. That is very important. Okay. Then you have the research approach. That is very important. Now, if your research approach mainly will be on deductive approach, because here on the deductive approach, what you do is you test a model. So if you are trying to create a model, then it will be inductive. So most of your studies will be deductive studies. Your research strategy will be a survey strategy because you are giving out a questionnaire. That is important. Then your research choice will be, sometimes it will be monomethod quantitative. Sometimes you will be going into mixed method or else multi-method. So either you will be able to go with the monomethod or the mixed method. So monomethod can be monomethod quantitative or monomethod qualitative as well. Otherwise, the mixed method will be quantitative and qualitative coming together. So that is very important. At the same time, you will be able to go with the time horizons. Time horizon will be a cross-sectional because you will be collecting data only once. In longitudinal studies, you will be able to select data and you will be able to engage data in multiple intervals during a period of time. That is very important. So you will be selecting only once point to collect your data. So your study will be cross-sectional. So you need to read through your literature and the textbook and then see whether you will be able to design your research. So that is very important. Then you come into the sampling. So under sampling, we need to see what is the unit of analysis. That is very important. When you are looking at the unit of analysis, you need to emphasize the fact from who will be your respondents. whether they are customers, whether they are belong to certain age category, or else whether they will be belong to certain geographical area. The unit of analysis has to be mentioned. That is when you start the sampling and try to give certain ideas. At the same time, you can mention what is your population. Sometimes the population can be indicative. Sometimes you will be able to give the exact number of the population, say 1,000 or 2,000 or whatever. Otherwise, you will be able to give an indicator. So if you can't understand and you can't pinpoint your population, then you will be able to go with your non-probability sampling. Probability sampling is being done when you can really identify the number in your population. So like 1,000 or 2,000, 10,000 or whatever. Then you need to see the sample selection method. So sample selection method can be mainly divided into two aspects. One is probability sampling, the other one is non-probability sampling. Under probability sampling, there are four methods which you learn: simple random, systematic, stratified, and cluster sampling. If you are using two methods in conjunction, then it will be multi-stage sampling. At the same time, you will be able to see in your non-probability sampling what is the aspects which you have to cover. So when you are applying non-probability sampling, you will be applying snowball sampling, purposive sampling, quota sampling, purposive sampling, convenience sampling, all that comes under that. I think you need to read and understand, and also you have your lecture notes. So from there you will be able to see those areas has to be addressed. That is very important. Then the next point which comes under the proposal is your data collection methods. So here you might have to address the primary and the secondary data collection methods separately. So in primary data collection methods, what you do is you are trying to collect the original data, which you will have an array of data collection tools. Mainly, most popular is the questionnaire, then you have the interviews, then you have observations, you have case study methods, focus group discussions. So you must have learned about your primary data collection methods. Then you have your secondary data collection methods. That will be your marketing documents. Sometimes you will be able to look at the published and unpublished material where you will be able to source data from that. So that is very important. Then the data analysis techniques. So if you are going with the mixed method, you have to have an understanding about your quantitative and qualitative both. That is very important. In quantitative, mainly most of you all are addressing the quantitative analysis. There you will be able to have certain understanding why you are using quantitative analysis. That is for the purpose of testing your hypothesis. How you are going to generate your data, that is very important. That is statistics generation. You will be able to use scale-based questions. From the scale-based questions, you will be able to see that each and every response is coded. So those codings can be taken from 1 to 5 or 1 to 7 Likert scale. You will be able to generate data. Then you will be able to use SPSS. That is important. Through SPSS, what are the type of analytical tools you are going to use? Are you going to use regression method, linear regression? Are you going to use correlation? So that understanding has to be there. So if you are using qualitative also, so you need to address that. What is the purpose of applying qualitative. So there also you will be able to test the hypothesis, support the quantitative analysis. Sometimes you will be able to help the study establish the study objectives. At the same time, how we are going to generate qualitative data. You will be able to use different tools and ask things like interviews. You will be able to use focus group discussions. You can ask open-ended questions. And there you will be able to collect not statistics, but ideas and words. So how are you going to analyze? You have a analytical tool called NVivo. I think SPSS and NVivo will be your next two seminars after tomorrow's seminar. So you will be able to get a general idea about how you are going to apply these techniques as well. So that is very important. Then you come into limitations of the study and the delimitations of the study. Now, in your proposal, you have only the guidelines, you have only the limitations of the study. But most oftenly, the lecturers and the Viva panel will ask what is the limitations and what are the delimitations of the study. Both aspects will be looked at. So look at the study limitations and the delimitations also. So that is very important. So we have come to understand the operationalization of variables, research design and sampling, data collection and data analysis, and the limitations of the study. So those are some of the main steps which you need to look at in your study. Any questions on these areas? Anything which you need to clarify? Okay, let's go into the next few slides and try to complete. Then you have the timeline. Now, for timeline, when you are preparing, you can use a Gantt chart. Here you have the activity or the task, and then each month you need to see that you divide it to 4 weeks. And you can color the activities as well. So either you will be able to have all the tasks running from the time you start developing a research topic going down to the final hardbound submission, or else you can divide it into research proposal and research report. And this is the general timeline which you have to submit. That is very important. And also then you have your references. Now references, here it should be the references what you have used for the research report. Sorry about the mistake here. And the references should be on alphabetical order, and you need to see that those references are kept on Harvard style. So this is the general flow of your entire proposal report. So this is what the format which we went through background of the study, research problem, then justification, research questions and research objectives, scope, significance, brief literature review, methodology, limitations of the study, time plan, and references. So this is the format we need to address. Any questions on the today's seminar, because this is what we need to cover from today's seminar. Anybody has any clarifications?
Regarding the referencing, so does that mean the Viva presentation should not have all the references in the proposal, the written proposal? Is that so?
Yeah, Viva presentation is different now. As long as you have the reference, the amount of reference which is being given on the Viva presentation, and the report can vary. Report might have wider reaching references, but whatever the references what you have used for the Viva presentation, you need to address there. Only the Viva, if you have mentioned all the in-text references, you have to have corresponding in-text references.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Anything else? Any other questions, any clarifications? Don't be shy, because if you want to clarify, you have to ask questions. Yeah, tomorrow we are trying to look at the Viva slides and the main report and the final Viva presentation. Those are the three sections tomorrow I have done in your seminar. Anything which you need to clarify regarding the research or how to conduct the research, particularly in terms of the proposal? These are the aspects which you need to, because proposal development is quite important. Then based on that, you can develop your slides. If you have any particular questions which you have encountered during your preparation of your proposal, if you wish to ask any questions, you are most welcome to us. Okay, thank you very much for your participation, and if there is no questions, we will be able to close the seminar here, and tomorrow we'll be able to look at those three sections as I mentioned. So attendance tomorrow also will be quite important as well. Okay, I wish you a very good night and goodbye for now.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good night.
Thank you. No,
Thank you, sir.
thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good night.
Night, sir.
Night.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.